Okay. Yay. So I'm so excited. Today is Earth Day. Yes. And everything we're talking about has a lot to do with the earth and not just meditation, but the addition of cannabis in your practice and mine as well is something very earthy. Very,
Very earth. I mean, it's a weed that grows out of the earth in rocky conditions and is abundant.
yes.
So
And I think that I was reading your book here, Cannabis and Spiritual Practice. And one of the things we've always talked about, I have to tell the audience that I've been studying with Will now for probably almost 4 years, and my husband before me. So you've always talked about the the fear of the body, what the body can do, how the body can feel. And your practice, he probably long before you integrated cannabis into your practice, you've always the meditation itself enlivens the body in a way,
absolutely.
yeah, and in ways that are so healing.
In ways that are so healing. And it really is important to make the distinction from what we traditionally think of as meditation, which is an exercise of mental faculties, focusing in on qualities of mind or concentrating attention. That was then. This is now. Every time the Dharma moves to a new territory, it changes, and it's just so clear whether you're using something like cannabis or not. The practices are about awakening the body, awakening the felt shimmer in the body, and then also just letting go and liberating the breath. So for some of us, a substance like cannabis supports that in a way that it would just get in the way if we're trying to wrestle with our minds. That's not what cannabis is about. Cannabis is about awakening, yielding, and letting go and going along for the ride.
Yes. And then it's enhanced by the body's movements of natural movements, I would say.
Natural movement. I mean, I see with the cannabis two things. First of all, it catalyzes and awakens what I call the shimmer. What, cannabis smokers might say, oh yeah, I feel this delicious, lovely buzz spreading through my whole body. Well, those are the sensations coming to life, waking up. And when we're really locked in the mind, lost in thought, or so identified with the me and me, it puts a shrouding, an enshrouding blanket over the sensations. So cannabis has been really helpful for so many people, just in this initial process of awakening, uh, of wakening up. Now, the other thing that you find that cannabis is very good for, as body wakes up, you realize, I don't want to walk around like a stone garden statue my life and be locked in a body that's like this. And you see this with with skateboarders, with surfers, with snowboarders, with
Yeah.
dancers, that there's something about the cannabis for many people that, yeah, it catalyzes the shimmer. And as the shimmer comes alive, it just moment to moment gets easier and easier. And the next thing you know, without your having done anything, oh, I'm going to start moving, the body's just letting go and moving. And this to me is this new Western path that's going to help us, come out of the misery of being locked in our minds and doing uh, uh, some of the practices coming over from Asia, they're rigid, they're tight, they're frozen, they're about mentation.
Are
We
they
have to let,
breathing? You have to wonder whether they're even breathing.
well, it's interesting, Kate. Uh, so, the Buddha's first statement in the Satipatthana Sutta, just become aware that you're breathing, right? Because we're not even aware that we breathe. But a lot of that will be focusing on the nostrils, and you're sitting in meditation, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. There's hardly any air going in. And that's actually an improvement over being lost in thought, where if you really examine your breath, nothing is happening. Okay, That's where most Buddhist practice coming over from Asia begins and ends. Hey, it's good. You become more aware, you become more awakened. Breath does become a bit more regular. It's not where the instructions end.
Mhm.
And in just what, another sentence or two later, the Buddha gives the culminating instruction where all this is going to lead to. And he said, now, you don't just focus on a small part of the body, right, and become aware. He doesn't even mention the word awareness. That again is a mentation or a mental faculty. He just says, figure out how to do this, gang. As you breathe in through the whole body. As you breathe out through the whole body. So body has to awaken. And then so that we can experience breath moving through body, not unlike how a wave moves through a body of water, naturally you just let go.
Yes.
And everything starts moving. So this is the shift that for many people, cannabis can support in very small amounts because these practices are strong. You know,
Yes.
part of the horror of the prohibition against cannabis and LSD and psilocybin and you name it is that we've squelched developing really, really good protocols for how to use these substances safely and effectively as catalyst and support for real awakening, not just getting a little clear in your mind, but lifting that lid and letting this awakened place come through.
Yes. Would you say microdosing marijuana is the way to use it in this practice?
Oh, absolutely. Within the context of this, this practice, I have a friend. He doesn't like the term microdose because that kind of implies Silicon Valley execs doing a tiny bit of LSD and going to work and being a little bit sharper, right? And mini doses, no, that's kind of too strong. You don't need very, very much uh, ingested substance to really catalyze these practices. David likes the term yogic dose,
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
but it's small, and that really will pertain if you're going to not just use cannabis, but maybe experiment with uh, mushrooms,
Hmm.
all
Or
amount of
LSD too, right?
LSD. I think
Well, that's a little harder to it's a little harder probably to uh, sort out how small a dose that would be.
yeah, I do have some ideas about that. And for me, it's cannabis that
Yes.
is my uh, sacrament supporting what we call these hollow bamboo dharma uh,
Hmm.
practices. Is just about sitting, playing, kind of dancing, letting go, floating in gravity, upright balancing. Breath awakens, body moves. I've experimented with LSD on a number of occasions. Now, about 100, is it micrograms, is a really good strong trip, right? And there's value to that for people. A spiritual revelation, we learn how to let go,
Hmm.
right? People that get into trouble with these substances fight it and don't want to just yield to this awakened current. Uh, with LSD, it would be maybe 15 to 20
Yeah. And it's
grams.
but hard to know.
There's no protocols.
Yeah, yeah.
Mission has squelched the protocols. So, it's time that we're just sharing some of this information for people who have the courage and the inclination. These substances
Right, right.
don't work for everybody, but for those of us that they do, it's wonderful, wonderful uh, catalytic support.
Catalytic, yes. Um, I was going to ask you, do you think that these substances are essential for the future of Western Zen?
I'm guessing that what's going to happen is that there will be two somatic wings of, if you want to call it Western Zen or Western Buddhism. And the students that I have right now, half of them are what I call my Pure Land students. And these are people, they are so careful about what they put in their
Oh,
mouths. The
yes, yes.
purest water, the purest food, no caffeine, no alcohol, and they certainly would not go near any kind of substances. as support for their practice. And Kate, they do that because that's what works.
Sure.
So that's fine. Now the Ganja Sangha people, in a sense, it's similar, but people were looking after our health, we're looking after our well-being, but we have found, some of us, and have been courageous enough to acknowledge that, say, a very, very small amount, toke or two, decent quality cannabis, it supports the awakening of the shimmer. And as the shimmer awakens, we feel even more what we can. I wasn't even feeling, I was holding tight there.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'll let that go. It's a letting go. And then suddenly breath opens. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, altogether natural thing. But yeah, I do see that there's probably going to be two legs. And for the people that it doesn't work for and the rest of us, that it really does.
Yes, I agree with you. So the historical spiritual practices, as you have just described, how did that break, how did you break free of that to come to where you are now?
Yeah, it's uh, okay, here's what happens to me. Cannabis comes into my life. I mean, I'm almost 78 now, so it's in 1966. That's pretty early on,
Yeah.
reasonably early on. It's God's medicine to me. Immediately, I suddenly, there's more to what is coming through here than I had this persona as kind of a bon vivant. I went to an Ivy League university, Ivy League, and then I was an art critic. I mean, that was Will. And I realized, whoa, that's part of who Will is in the world. But there's so much greater depth. And you know what else happened really early on with that? I suddenly understood what religion was all about.
Hmm.
Religion is about going inside and awakening. So that happened early. Now, in my 20s, many, many pretty large opening experiences. Every single one was initiated through the ingestion of something, cannabis, some of the stronger psychedelics as well. Then Goenka Vipassana came into my life.
Hmm.
Amazing practice, but so intensely, ridiculously intense. You're really sitting like a stone garden statue for hours and days. And some people get crushed. Many people are getting crushed by the orientation to sitting that's coming over from Asia, be it Vipassana, Zen, the Vajrayana, and this is what has got to shift. So, but anyway, in those days, I'm like anybody else. It's the Buddhist Dharma coming over 2,500 years.
Mhm.
And the retreat, it was ridiculously painful and intense, but there was also very real awakening that started occurring. So I said to myself, okay, Will, you better just put this other stuff aside and become serious. So I became a very good Buddhist boy. No hair and trying to sit twice a day, no alcohol, no substances, and woke up about 13 years later realizing I was not happy. And that the trajectory of the openings that had been occurring in my 20s,
Mhm.
they'd stopped. And I slowly started giving myself permission because let's face it, the spiritual world's attitude towards what you and I are talking about right now ain't a heck of a lot different from the 1950s straight world's attitude towards gays.
Ugh.
Shaming, blaming, ostracizing, no, not good, that's bad. And it's just insanity. At every retreat that I've ever taught, I'd have people coming up teary, Mr. Johnson, can I talk to you? And there are people for whom substances have been a part of their path and they love their Dharma community, but they're getting right out of the 1950s, shamed, blamed, ostracized, condescended to.
Yeah, that's not spiritual. You know, the Course in Miracles, as you know, I study, would be totally appalled by that. The
It,
judgment, the
it,
judgment. We have to get rid of judgment. All these
yeah,
lower vibrational emotions, which
yeah,
is
yeah,
shame and blame and judgment and, grievances and so these sorts of things are not on a higher vibrational frequency. And also, they're not elevated emotions, which this practice does foster the elevated emotions of joy and gratitude and compassion, just automatically.
People often ask me, okay, Will, what's the point? You talk about this great wide open condition where body is just awakened, breath is moving through. This awakened body becomes this portal that all of a sudden you just, whoa, I'm just sort of seamlessly floating into another dimension of, of awareness that's altogether natural, but is much deeper and frankly much higher than the conventional identity that that most of us have. So, uh, uh, first of all, it's a spiritual revelation to get that the world of form, whoa, it's very much a part of who we are, but it is not the whole thing. So says the Heart Sutra, so says the quantum physicist David Bohm. And we start becoming privy to this whole other dimension of being alive. Now, for me, one, it's joyous. Two, it feels really good. And uh, the other thing that I often say about this awakening and opening, and this really segues right into what the Course in Miracles is all about. In these wide open states, these awakened states that cannabis can support, it's impossible when you're really letting go into the fullness of what this is to behave unethically or immorally.
Right.
And the complete absence of those kinds of attitudes, all it is this stream phenomena that, for lack of a better word, we call love.
Right. And that is the only thing that really exists. The world of form and the thinking of the world is getting so that it would be better not to even pay attention to it, turn off the news and just basically, make your house a sanctuary of meditation,
Right.
meditation corners where you can go and just let the motions of the body take off, and with or without cannabis. I mean, basically. Yeah.
With or without. I don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. I don't think it's going to become mandatory, but I know that there are going to be lineages or traditions that are aware that, look, every time the Dharma is moved, it changes. It
Mm,
goes into Japan, it counters the samurai and it becomes fierce. Okay. It goes up into Tibet and it's all the shamanistic, animistic stuff. And that becomes part of the Dharma. And I've looked back on my life. And for me, the two major, what I could call homegrown spiritual awakenings that have occurred in my life, one certainly is that the music, we've all given ourselves permission to start moving. We're no longer sitting in these bodies. And the second, look at the advent and availability from cannabis to LSD and everything in between beyond that has exploded open in our culture. And you ask an average person, maybe an obsessive fanatic like me, who once I got a bloodhound scent of the great wide open, I couldn't stop myself from chasing it. And I wouldn't even say chasing it. I couldn't stop myself from being magnetically drawn into
there
it.
you go. And also, you wanted to share it.
You want to share it. You want to share this stuff. But uh, it occurs for so many people, maybe unlike as obsessive a fanatic as I am. But you ask kind of an average person, 60, 70, hey, did anything really extraordinary happen in your life? Well, I was 24 and I was up in the mountains with my friends, and they said, put this in your mouth. And it was the most amazing experience of my life. How can a practice that is about exploring the farthest reaches of human nature turn its back on that?
Right. Not only that, but when people recall those experiences, they can't put it into words ever.
Into words, you go to a
They might actually
dimension.
go through their whole life trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, to tell you the truth, that's what my life has been,
Yes.
Kate.
Yes.
In many ways, I don't talk about this much, but as a young man, I do write about this in The Selfish and the Sacred Mountain. I would go to bed at night and I would just have these experiences, right? The body would start shimmering, coming awake, and the next thing I knew, I was just dissolving it away into the universe. And in many ways, I've talked to my brother about this, that my life has been, okay, I don't know what that was. I know it was wonderful. And I'm going to, figure out what it is. And what you say about the language. I would often think as a little kid, okay, next time it happens, I'm going to get really clear about what's going on so I can describe it to my mom.
Oh, oh, she wouldn't have wanted to hear that.
No, she wouldn't have. I've thought about this lately too. I'm really glad I was never able to do that because my parents, being concerned parents would probably go, oh dear, something's wrong with Billy. We better get him to a doctor
Oh,
quick.
and give you
Right.
dreams.
Yeah. But I would go into a place you couldn't even bring up a word or language. And it's interesting about languaging and words and this whole thought thing, that the ticker tape parade that won't stop, it is dependent on tensing and holding patterns of resistant tensing, not only through the body, but very much in the cranium, but we're so unaware of that. So it's when we start letting go, feeling the holding that's here that creates me. Oh, I can just let that go.
Yeah, your practice,
Languaging. Yeah.
your practice awakens the heart, which is the magnetic center of the body.
Is
And
the
that goes
yeah.
up naturally to the brain. And that's
Yeah.
why it's so possible during the practice to not think. We're not thinking. Or if you start to think, you just bring yourself back to the breath through the body.
When there are moments in this practice when everything awakens. You can call it somatic satori
Yeah.
if you want. And in those moments, I am not here, but the awareness and the presence and the depth of being. Can I say that even? It's there very, very, very strongly. And then, a thought comes back in. You don't want to fight with that. Sometimes I even say to myself, oh, thank you, mind,
Yeah.
for reminding me
Yes.
that, whoa, I've stopped breathing again. I've gone tense in my body. Okay, let me keep on playing with these principles. Come
Mhm.
from the Buddha, that come from Rumi, that come from Tilopa, that come from the somatics world, that come from Shiva. If I kind of explore these kinds of, I can even call them physiological hacks. Oh, there's this whole other dimension. Couldn't be more natural, starting to come through me. And I like it there, even though conventional I isn't there
Right.
anymore. It's just natural. It's just the natural state.
How has Rumi influenced you and Talopa have and maybe people don't know about Talopa, but they do know about Rumi. But you had said to us, your students, that the body needs to do nothing other than just relax.
That's pure Tilopa, pure Tilopa. It has nothing to do with mental concentration or doing mental gymnastics. It's just awaken and evoked, relaxed, felt shimmer. For the body to relax, it comes alive. Here's the shimmer. And it's not as though I put my awareness in a part of my body and feel what's there. I'm just liberating the shimmer. The shimmer is the tactile sensory field, just in the way everything is we see in front of us, that's visual, and what we hear is auditory.
Yeah.
But so much of this primary sensory field has been shrouded over. And we do that through holding and tensing the body very, very tightly, inhibiting breath. And that's what Tilopa is getting at. He said, no, 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 no. Just relax it and really go deep into this process of what relaxing is. It's a current. It's not just an event, a letting go. There's an awakening of felt shimmer what Uba calls activated anicca. You actually feel the whole body, how vibratory.
Yes.
It is. It's just vibration, but you feel it. It's very, very real.
And the more relaxed you are, the more profoundly you do feel it.
Totally, because the relaxation is what melts the barriers that keeps me locked in my head and not feeling anything in body. So yeah, Talopa has been very, very dear to my heart. And I've sometimes felt that, you wake up on a desert island, you only have one piece of teaching. It should be Talopa's. Do nothing but relax, because you're going to have to find, we talk a lot about playing with upright balancing. If you're in a body like this, you can't relax. But if you play, this is like a dance, a surrender dance of upright balancing. Oh, the locks in the canal, they get dissolved and body starts coming alive. That's pure Talopa. Now, Rumi is as body oriented as you get. Now, my first involvement with Rumi had to do with the gazing practice. The gazing practice where you just sit and open and hold your gaze and relax in front of a dear friend, right? And so the body comes alive and things start shifting and things start getting hallucinatory. That's really what I twigged to early in life. And then somehow I mentioned, very early on when I think it was Robert Bly in the 80s started, Rumi poems started coming out. I opened his little book. First thing I opened to, there was the gazing practice.
Mm-hmm.
Friend sits by friend. They read the mysteries.
Yes, that can be terrifying for people. One time, Tom and I held a retreat, and we started out with gazing like that. And I was facing a friend of ours, and he became somewhat psychotic. And I had to say, look, you don't really have to do this. And if you want to leave, please do. I mean, please leave. It's okay. But I think it does awaken a like, oh my God. It might open things up pretty quickly.
Pretty
Yeah,
quickly,
exactly.
pretty quickly. And let's sort of
Yeah.
up the ante here. My wife Coco and I, what we like to do at least once a year is take a substance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
May is a very good one. And then when we feel it saying hello, we'll kind of settle in at opposite sides of a sofa and open into the gaze for the next 5 or 6 hours. And people need to experience that to believe what happens. So Rumi is all about the awakening of what you and I are talking about here today. I think I remember reading one scholar who said that there was some indication that Shams, Rumi's great partner in the practice, came out of something called the Assassins. I used to hear of this Sufi sect. Whoa, what do you have to kill someone? No, Hashishans.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know anything about that. I do know that cannabis is an extraordinary sacrament for falling into the gazing practice. Rumi says things like, in the valley of your friend's face, there's a well. Go to that
Cool.
valley, fall into that well, drown there, right? This is the transformation now. Really, Rumi had a lot to, well, so Rumi is a lot about moving the body. How do you learn how to do this kind of dance that we're talking about? It isn't like ballroom, left foot, right foot, rock step. He'd say, oh, just look at the leaves on the branches of a tree in a lightly blowing wind, right?
Yeah.
That's how this dance proceeds. And Rumi is also very, very deeply oriented towards awakening breath,
Mm-hmm.
breath. And uh, so I get into Rumi in a big way and help the translator, the main translator of Rumi from Turkish and English, Nevet Ercan. Yeah, I got very close to Nevet. And there was this one, well, they're actually from two different parts of the Divan, right? But Rumi says, bringing breath to life. And
Yeah.
isn't that what we're talking about? The Buddha says, breathe through the whole body. Now that just happened by letting go, not by trying to force anything.
Yes,
And
yes.
when he says bringing breath to life, the essence of every true path of spiritual awakening. Okay. And he says, let every breath you take go through the whole thing, cleanse the entire body and soul of all of its grief and pain. Whole body, so you can continue to glow. So it's a more lyrical way of what the Buddha is saying as you breathe in through the whole body. And the Buddha, as far as I can tell, he said, figure out how to do that. Just
Yes.
figure out how to do that because that is going to totally alter the physiology of the body. Remember, you're lost in thought and you're sniffing. There's hardly anything going on. That has a physiological effect on body that creates, the quality of consciousness that is lost in thought depends on that breath. Now, all of a sudden, what would happen? He says, if you figure it out, gang, breathing through the whole body. And you do that for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, a few hours, a
Mhm.
few days. And you know what we find in our practice, Kate, after 2 or 3 hours, the body is just it's shimmery, it's tingly, it's floaty, but the motions are spontaneous. You just keep letting go, and whatever's holding on just keeps, letting go. So I often say that Rumi, in that one expression, bringing breath to life, the essence of every true path of spiritual awakening, meant a lot to me as I kept wrestling with what could the Buddha possibly mean by breathing through the whole body?
Mhm. Yeah. I think that's what you're doing is teaching others to do that. It's very important. And
Yeah,
you mentioned in your book too that the substances like probably cannabis was used. There's evidence that it was used by those ancient people,
absolutely.
or whatever. Yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, look, the legends down to this day about Shiva,
Yes,
one
that's it.
of the great Hindu gods, who was very clear he was a, a human, after which a lot of mythic dazzle got superimposed on him. But uh, down to this day, the legends are Shiva and his partner Parvati. In fact, I have a copy of an old Indian miniature
Oh,
painting that shows Shiva and Parvati preparing bhang on Kailas. So bhang, from India, say drink with cannabis in it. And the stories would be that Shiva would drink this, he would stand up, energies would start awakening in his body. Sound kind of familiar?
yes.
And all of a sudden, his body just started making spontaneous motions, out of which he brings the body oriented practices of yoga and dance to the planet. Well, that's what happened to me.
Yes. And
Exactly what happened
there a
to me.
dance involved with Sufi and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I remember the day I was down in the garden. Uh, I'd had a toke, and all of a sudden, this playing with balance, my body just suddenly let go and got it.
Yeah.
Oh, playing with balance, you can let go of everything and you don't fall over.
Right.
Oh, but you just have to keep, it's very, very motile and floaty. And all of a sudden, this energy explodes. And the next thing I know, my body is moving. And, come on, I'm just a Minnesota guy, in the 60s. And, I kind of bop up and down at rock and roll shows or something. But, it was not this happening. I'm in my early 20s. I'm out uh, I'm out in the woods in California. This is way before there's yoga centers or continuum movement centers in every major street corner in the cities. But I could tell I don't know what was happening, but this is good. This
I
is
think it
good.
was a continuation of what you were experiencing as a child, you know, in
I
your,
believe so. I
yeah.
believe so. Kate, actually, even that happened to me. And I say I write about this in Selfish and the Sacred Mountain. Uh, I can't even remember what the ages were, 6 through 9. I don't know, a couple times a week,
Mhm.
right? And then, I go through puberty and adolescence, and I'm interested in girls, and for me, it was academics,
Right.
right? And, in university, it starts waking up again. But then I also remember, uh, being out of university. I moved to California. Remember Be Here Now by Ram Dass? That was all of our Bibles. And I was using a mantra from that, a long one. Aditya Hridayam Punya,
Yes.
Sarsatru Binashana. Aditya Hridayam Punya, Sarsat. And I would just, say that silently.
Mhm.
And one day, I do it for an hour and I feel kind of relaxed, but no big deal. One day towards the end, something starts happening. And I actually start intoning it. And the next thing I know, I'm falling into what I completely remember and recognize as what would happen to me as a child going to bed at night. And I remember at that point, breath just stopped. And then I really started bawling.
Oh,
I'd remembered what uh, what I'd uh, gotten away from, and the rest of my life, I can't say I've my entire life has been devoted moment by moment to that because it hasn't. I'm another guy, right? But that has always been the primary motivator because it's wonderful there. Why wouldn't we want to have access to this dimension of being human?
yes, yes. Well, there are certain pivotal moments in our lives that we can maybe not live it all the time, but when you stop and you think about that moment and what it meant to you at the time, it actually does color your moment at the very
Totally.
present moment. Yeah.
It just totally impacts your life. That first moment in the garden when all of a sudden my body came alive, my body started moving. Very,
Mm-hmm.
very important. How about hitchhiking into San Francisco one day, and I get picked up by this guy who was destined to become my greatest close friend. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, with whom our whole quest was what would authentic being be about? And it was with Phil that the gazing practice started in my life. That moment where I'm just sitting, and the next thing I know, oh, this is what meditation is, and I'm experiencing this extraordinary uh, dissolving back into something so primal and so good. It has goodness to it. As I say, it not only felt delicious, although almost so delicious to be unbearable. I really got no way can anybody behave immorally or unethically. And let's
yeah,
be
yeah.
honest, the world needs some good tutelage in how to let immorality and lack of ethics go from human nature.
Well, especially from within ourselves. I mean, we can't
It's
change.
all we can do. It's
Yeah.
all we can do.
Ramana Maharshi was into the gazing thing in a
Yes,
different sort of way. We used to, we went to a retreat in Toronto, and we did the Ramana Maharshi exercise of starting out gazing, saying, I am. And people, of course, seem to naturally say I am, and they define their roles or they state their roles in life. But then something happens where it goes far, far beyond the form into the formlessness. And I really valued that. That was so cool.
totally. Totally. I mean, it's extraordinary. Ramana Maharshi, one of my kind of Dharma heroes, who would say, when the eyes of the student meet the gaze of the teacher, words of instruction are no longer necessary because
Good, good,
you
good.
start having, having the experience. Now, the only way that I would kind of amend that statement, the gazing practice is universal. all you need is your friend. You don't need a great gazer to initiate you into the practice. You really just don't. It's just you sit down, there's your friend. You just, look at each other.
Mhm.
That's what Rumi says. Look at me, look at me, look at me even once with
Well,
your
you
divine
have a big picture of
eyes.
him or
Yeah,
any of the other gurus and look into their eyes. But
yeah,
it just has to do with looking into the eyes, always looking into the eyes of a friend when
totally.
you're talking to them instead of looking at your cell phone or whatever.
Well, because it's so interesting. And again, I do not know why this works this way, but there's something about the gaze, it affects us so strongly and starts really pulling plugs on the fixity of the lost in thought mind. And then we just start having these, different qualities of emotion, of self come to the fore. Sometimes they could be scary. You can get very frightened. So you just be there. It's a frightened little kid. It's okay. Because all of a sudden, out of that frightened little kid, something lets go, like the clouds lift. And
Yes.
there's something so much deeper. And suddenly it's a wise elder that comes through. Mostly in the 90s, that's what I was teaching, the gazing practice.
Mm.
Uh, it got to a point that I decided I wanted to shift my focus just to teaching the sitting meditation practices, because even though I've been blessed with amazing partners in the practice, it would get so frustrating for me and obviously for many of these people that I'm referring to in the gazing workshops. It was so extraordinary and they couldn't find anybody to do it with.
Right. Oh, yes, that's frustrating. Oh, there, you can do it to your dog.
I live in Costa Rica. You know who are great gazers? Iguanas.
Oh,
Are they great gazers? And they are of the earth. Deer sometimes are great, uh,
yes. Yes.
uh, great gazers. But, the extraordinary, bond, the awakening is with the dear friend.
Yes, I agree. Well, I have a great awakening with Pearl. As you know, Pearl, she loves to gaze, and Masa is learning how to do it. But they are very profound creatures. And then, of course, if you're a little high on cannabis, you don't see them as a dog anymore. You see them as totally the essence of what life is all about, these animals, you know. I live alone,
It's
so
like,
I like that actually.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
How about your retreat that you're about to do, or maybe you're doing it?
There is a retreat that I'm considering doing at the end of August down here in Costa Rica. Uh, I call the retreat Embracing the Nagas. The Nagas were very motile and fluid creatures, and Buddhism said no to the Nagas. The Buddha actually said no to the Naga. No, no, you can't study here. Try to be reborn as a human, become a monk. Okay, I'm not a scholar, but there are places in the Buddhist history where you had a choice. Let's go to the awakening of the body, or no, shut it down. Let's keep going to the mind. Every time it's gone that way.
Ooh.
So I know. So, the Nagas are simply an awareness that when we let go to breath, to the current of the life force, just to playing with this place of floating, balancing, everything starts moving. My idea is to teach it, in the format of a traditional Dharma retreat, although probably 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon, 2 hours in the evening. And cannabis is optional
Right.
so that I would lead people. And I want to do some of the practices in the water because, it changes the experience
Oh,
of gravity and you
yes.
can let go more. We'll see. We'll see. My intention is for that to happen. We'll see if it actually occurs. Uh, I'm also realizing at my age, it's one hell of a lot of work.
Oh, of course. Of
And
course.
I may end up just preferring hanging out with someone like you through a medium like this. Zoom is wonderful. Don't ask me to explain why, but you and I have talked about this with Claire. when the
Yes.
three of us practice together.
Oh, I know. I mean, I feel like we are
Yeah,
gazing.
we are
Yeah.
absolutely, zooming on each other.
Yeah. Yeah. We're zooming, man.
Yeah. But I feel like I give you permission to let go and you let go, and that gives me permission to let go.
Yep.
And here we are. Oh, I
We
love
are. We're,
the
we're,
person
we're
listening,
like,
but
we are the boomers.
we
And
are, yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know,
we,
this is this is the best of boomer awakening. It truly is.
it is. We boomer awakening. Yes. I love it. How about a book that you're writing now?
Okay. That'll
And
be,
you've written how many? Five, six?
God, I don't know. How many?
I have at least five of them. Yeah.
Okay. I think it's at about 15 at this point.
Oh.
And, every one of them are about this awakening, right? So, and it's interesting. Just yesterday, I finished going over the copy editing. So that one's off now. It'll be out in January. The Radical Practice of Somatic Dharma. Radiant body, radiant mind. So it's not about becoming more focused in the mind, becoming calmer or clearer. It's about awakening. It's about real awakening. And that's what Buddha means. It means to awaken. It's not, oh, let's go to some abstruse place in the mental world. No, it's about a human awakening. And I feel really good about that book. I pulled the fewest punches in this book of any that uh, that I've written.
Oh, well, you were forced to pull punches with your publishers. And now you're doing
I've
this.
been blessed. I've been blessed as a writer that uh, publishers they've been open to me, especially in her traditions. I'll get a hold of the project manager there. Hey, John, I'm thinking of doing something. Oh, that sounds great. Well, we'll send you a contract. So I am. I realize I've been very, very blessed that way. But they've been continuing to support me getting this information out there. And Kate, the information is revolutionary. It is radical. You can use the word heretical if you like, so long as the word heresy doesn't mean something, oh, they're heretical, that's bad. Well, from the fixed position of a calcified establishment, they don't like the heretics. But
Yes.
it's heretics amongst us that, hey, we don't want to burn the house down, you know? We want to go back to these seminal principles that have somehow been forgotten about. Let's make this alive again. Let's make it alive again. One of my favorite Buddhist stories and quotes, Jaju, it's called Jashu. And I see this scene, the teacher, Jaju, is standing with probably a senior student right outside looking in at a meditation hall where everybody is sitting like
Oh, yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And the student asks Jaju, what is meditation? And Jaju says, that's not meditation. And the student says, confused, well, why isn't that meditation? And Jaju said, because it's alive. It's alive. And that's what we're wanting to do, is to bring body, bring human being truly alive, truly awakened.
Yes. Wow. This is great.
A lot of fun to do this with you, Kate.
Yeah, this is wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And do you have any parting words of wisdom?
No,
No.
no,
No, I
no.
don't think you need to, because the whole thing was very wise. Very
Yeah.
wise.
No, so wait, actually, this could be
Okay.
one that I did a podcast interview a while ago. And at the end, the person, very polite, oh, Mr. Johnson, wow, I really see that what you're offering here is a whole different approach from the orientation that's coming over from Asia. Could you leave our listeners with one last little nugget? What's the most powerful piece that you bring? And I thought about that for a second. And what came through, Kate, was said, you know something? The most impactful thing that I do, I give people permission to let go.
Yes.
It's not about trying to form our bodies like dough into a cookie cutter mold. No, it's about really letting go by playing with upright balancing.
Yes.
And that's what gravity, suddenly you kind of start floating in it, right? And everything gets uplifted. And it's this current continues surrendering, letting go, not by trying to force yourself into anything or bringing your mind back to focusing on a little point, right? So permission to let go.
Yes, that's perfect.
But
Perfect.
who am I to give people permission to let go? Well, I guess someone has to. So
Yeah.
why not?
Well, people aren't giving themselves permission to.
Not giving themselves that permission. We're all trying to do it right.
I know, and to be accepted, and I want you to
Boy,
like me. You've got to
yeah,
like me.
yeah, yeah.
Well, nobody has to like anybody, but I think people have to love each other. They have to love each other.
Yeah. So all they have to do is love themselves. And this practice is really a practice of loving yourself, because instead of trying to change this or to become more this way or less that way, you just experience right in this moment
Right.
what's actually happening. And then we let go, and nothing could be more loving than that. And as I've said, as that blossoms, you can't be unloving.
Love is the answer. Thank you so much, Will. I appreciate it. I'm
Yeah,
trying to figure out what to do here, but I'll figure it out.
okay, lots of love. Lots of love. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Okay, see ya.
Bye.
Bye.